what I realized once I got coaching from my current coach, there's a massive difference between coaching and mentoring. So the way my coach does it, he has every 2 weeks a coaching call, and then the following 2 weeks would be a mentoring call. And honestly, coaching is completely different to what I thought it was. It's someone listening to you because you have all the ideas and all of the answers. They're literally just bringing it out of you.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why? Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Gary Daly, a Middle East-based sales professional, investor, and lifelong learner with a passion for personal and professional growth. Over the past decade, he's built a global career across Australia, the UK, Ireland, and the UAE. Gary, as I mentioned, you've got a very interesting bio, but I think it's going to be much more interesting to let the guests kind of hear it from you. So first, I want to say thank you for being on the show today. Thanks for taking out the time to come chat with me. I'm really excited to talk about, kind of your background and where you are today. So thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it.
Excellent. No, thanks so much, Jason, for the time. I really appreciate it as well. To sort of set the scene, I love the Know Your Why being your podcast. So I guess I'll explain sort of where I've gone, reverse engineer it, and maybe sort of explain my why as well. So look, I went to university, sort of did pretty well, went backpacking then to South America, Australia, and then I sort of, in all honesty, froze. I didn't really know what to do. I sort of fell into a sales career. I started working for a startup company that unfortunately didn't start up. It actually went into liquidation and administration, and basically it went bankrupt. In my first 2 weeks, my paycheck that I received bounced, and there was someone else who had joined as well, and they sent an email to all the company and said, this isn't good enough, you should leave. For some reason I didn't leave, probably because my visa was tied to the company and I liked the Australian lifestyle. Long story short, then there was a good couple of years where it wasn't being paid, and there was one day, and it's sort of the aha moment, where my twin brother just saw me lounging on the couch at home, and he had got free tickets to a business seminar, and Tony Robbins was one of the speakers. And in all honesty, I didn't really know about personal development or personal growth, so I decided, why not just go to this business seminar? And the minute that I went there and I saw the likes of Tony Robbins and the other speakers, it was just that aha moment that, okay, maybe I can actually take charge of my career. And, whatever's happened to me is sort of, it's my fault ultimately, and I have the responsibility to change it. So I started going to more and more of these seminars, reading books. I was maybe 24 at the time. And it just opened up my mind, and I realized that I was in the wrong vehicle and decided to leave Australia. And almost like a blank canvas, I moved to the UK. I managed to get into a Fortune 500 company. They actually rejected me initially because I didn't have the sales numbers clearly, because the company had been failing. But they said, we like you so much that we'll create this sort of a junior role in sales. And I was roughly 27. And, I wasn't aware of the company and the technology, but, I went into this role and I started getting promotions. I started being like a sponge, going for coffees with the top salespeople, learning how they sort of develop their careers, and really just listening to them on the phone, and building my network both inside and outside of work. And I got several promotions. I actually got to relocate then to Ireland and get a more senior role. During the pandemic, they did a global sort of a public speaking competition. And out of 2,000 people, I managed to win and pitch to the CEO of this Fortune 500 company, which was no small feat. I then repeated my winning streak the following year as well, in front of more C-level executives. And then, fast forward to today, I'm now based in Dubai, so I got another sort of international move. And I feel like the young person that was in Australia, I'm investing in like a coach to coach me. I've wrote a book which is called Built by Lessons, because ultimately my why is to give back, because I went through pretty tough experiences and I wanted to just reverse engineer what happened to me so that maybe someone younger in career or even mid career who's stuck can sort of learn from these lessons. So, in a nutshell, that's my story.
Yeah, yeah. I'm I'm sure there was a lot more moments along the way that kind of at those lessons that the book is based around. And I think that it's funny how things happen in life. Like going to this seminar with your brother, and that just kind of can change your perspective. And I think maybe that's and I haven't read the book yet, but maybe this is one of the lessons, if it's not in there, like being open to opportunity. Because I think that sometimes people just those things come up and they say, no, no, I'm not gonna go to that. I don't. That sounds silly. Whatever it is, be unwilling to maybe open your mind to those types of influences and seeing our lives as you know we are active participants. We are driving the ship rather than just kind of being a victim of whatever happens to us. And so I that point obviously had a big impact on you. Was it was it immediate? What did you, I mean, when you went to that seminar, and kind of how did you process that? Because I would imagine we often talk about, people mention their aha moment or light bulb moment, but like, were you instantly just off to the races? Kind of how did you then turn around and sort of implement into your life?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And I guess just on that, I mean, the coach that I work with, he always says assumptions close doors and questions open them. And that we are antennas and that we're constantly receiving stuff. And I just,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, I received that, ticket from my twin. And I think I won't say it was immediate, but it was a bit like the Matrix, where you actually see, okay, like maybe my whole life, like it's been more the institutions like education that have been putting sort of like, this is the goal that you should reach. But then when you're out of that environment, it's almost like you don't know what to do, you freeze. But I sort of saw that everyone at the seminar was like, had their own goals, had their own personal goals, and that it is ultimately your responsibility. And I think it was when someone said that, like, wherever you are in life now, it is 100% on you, it's not on anyone else. So I almost, like, that just really hit me, and I decided, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for my life, because I can't leave it up to someone else. Mom and dad have done their best, and the universities that I was in, but now it's completely up to me. And I didn't want to be a victim, because I could have easily blamed the CEO of this company, but ultimately I chose to work for this company, so therefore it's on me. And at least he gave me a chance. So for whatever reason, I just took complete responsibility on that. And I think it was the environment that I was in. It was clear to me that there was definitely another way to do this.
Yeah, yeah. And you went, kind of from that place, you went to into Fortune 500 company, in that junior role. You talked about kind of that willingness to be a sponge and listen to, the senior sales and kind of try and pick up everything that you could. And I think that that's another maybe piece of that puzzle, where it's like, okay, being open to opportunities, but also just being having a willingness to learn in whatever scenario that you're put into. Maybe not getting immediately the position that you would like, but what better way than to kind of work your way up, but then to get in there at whatever level you can, and kind of move through that process. um, from that point to then winning that competition, I think I've had a lot of guests on that talk about that come from a sales background, and I think it does tend to be very, very like applicable to a lot of places in life at some level. And I think, people say that we're always selling something, or kind of always there's a lot to that in business. Do you have any takeaway lessons from that time, from sort of growing from junior sales to now winning this competition?
Yeah, 100%. So like when I got into the door, I there was inspiration all around me. I mean, you could clearly see like who the top performers were, and I just had I guess, the humbleness to go to the top performers, ask them like, I'd love to have a coffee with you, an exchange basically. I'd love to sort of pick your brain on how you've achieved what you've achieved, and I think you should definitely do that when you're younger in that environment. And I think being at the business seminars as well, obviously there's loads of different courses that you can do, and you can go on YouTube and there's lots of free information, but I realized pretty quickly like you have to pay to play. And for me at the start it was like it could be a $24 like cold calling course, or it could be like a day seminar where you have to give up your weekends, like you have to sacrifice it. And I mean, it's called sacrifice because you have to make it sacred. And I was younger then. I probably didn't have as much responsibilities, so I was able to go on the weekends, to these things. So I just put absolutely everything into it, and also like you also have to create your own path as well. I mean, the top performers were great, but you learn stuff outside of work. I heard about something called Toastmasters, which I'm not the most natural public speaker. I've sweated through a suit in university. So I then decided, okay, if I'm to learn public speaking, I can't just be in my work environment. I need to meet people outside of that, strangers, to help me develop my skills. So I started going to Toastmasters, and like being completely outside of my comfort zone in front of strangers, talking about topics I had no idea about. And like it was very debilitating, I guess, at the start. But the more I went to it every 2 weeks, the better I got at public speaking. And then I saw that that actually helped me when I was even just talking to, say, the senior people in the office. And then I became sort of known as becoming a public speaker, right? And it's so off the cuff that when I was doing interviews, it helps you in those interviews as well, because they might throw a question at you that might sort of startle you. But because I was going to Toastmasters, I knew this sort of step by step process about pausing, repeating a question, maybe flipping the question, things like that. And I just saw all these little skills stacking and stacking and stacking. Um, and like I'm not a natural salesperson at all. When I joined the company, I was meditating, sort of sober Irishman. I gave up alcohol as well, things like that. So I wasn't the most natural of salespeople, but that
Yeah.
didn't matter. You don't have to be, right, because it's different for everyone. Like everyone gravitates towards different people. So they were sort of some of the things that I did to, I guess, ultimately get to where I am now.
Yeah, that's a very, I think, interesting point, because I also I've never actually worked in sales. I mean, I guess, like I said, we all are generally, selling something, or talking about something we would like others to be interested in, which is, I think, what sales really boils down to. But I've heard a few other people, and now you kind of mentioned that point about not having that natural sales, kind of, I don't know, ability or what. But what I'm also hearing you saying is that's okay, and you develop a process. And so you mentioned, kind of doing all of this learning from the other sales executives, going to Toastmasters. I've heard people mention that before as a really good way to kind of get in that place where you are, I think, just able to speak to people in a more natural way, I guess, than it might be otherwise. And so it's funny, because I say that in a natural way, but maybe it isn't natural for you. So sort of learning that process of being able to speak to people, or speak on a stage, that kind of thing, as a public speaker. Are there specific things that, kind of maybe someone's listening and they hear, oh, okay, and certainly they can join Toastmasters as well or find these programs, but are there specific things that are good starting points for people that just maybe don't even necessarily want to be a public speaker, but they just want to kind of get to a place where maybe they handle those interviews a little bit better? That, that you just mentioned that as an example of where it's helped you out. Are there some things that you would recommend people do to help themselves kind of come more, again, I use the word natural, at least seeming, in those
Yeah.
scenarios?
Yeah, I think once again, I have to go back to Toastmasters because it does sort of put you outside of your comfort zone. But I mean, there's definitely other ways as well, right? I mean, if you saw someone who was a very good public speaker in your company, like why not ask them about their tips on public speaking? You know, that could be quite a good one as well, because there's a blueprint, right? They've done that. They've went through sort of the tough learning, so that's definitely a big thing. Um, the other thing which maybe might put you outside of your comfort zone is like the likes of LinkedIn or social media. Why not record a video, or even before you put it on LinkedIn, like just record yourself, like speak to the camera, and then almost view yourself as like I guess it's like a vehicle of expression, right? Your career. So just view yourself and then just see where you can improve. 100%. Maybe get some people to critique you, do as many interviews as you can. I think they're probably the best ways to do it. But I would probably seek someone within your organization who's pretty good at public speaking and ask them about their skills, because we just make an assumption that they've always been good at public speaking and
Yeah.
that they don't get nervous and all that type of stuff. So I think that's quite good. Maybe sort of left field is, I'm very big into like the personal development outside of like the norm in sales. So, for instance, like I've done things like retreats, ice baths, as an example. Like Wim Hof is a sort of well, he's a well-known figure globally, but if you don't know him, he sort of has world records of being in the ice, and he's climbed Everest and things like that. So. I've been to sort of retreats. I've gone into the ice water. I've learned to control my breathing, which then makes me less nervous, before I go up and I speak to people. But also, just it's cheesy, but being yourself, like being authentic, and rehearse, like constantly rehearse what you're going to say. And if you know about your topic, then you generally don't fear it as much, right? Because when I sweated through a suit in university, most likely hadn't practiced and most likely hadn't done my research as well. So maybe to throw my younger self under the bus, you sort of practice makes progress, really, I think is
Yeah,
key.
yeah. I think that's a great point. Is just preparedness takes away a lot of that um, anxiety that you might have about, kind of speaking on a topic. I always find it's much easier to have, kind of a conversation or teach someone about something that you feel very comfortable, that it's second nature to speak on. And so being able to, I think, have that just level of comfort with whatever your subject matter is helps a lot. And so that just comes down to practicing. That just comes down to preparing and knowing exactly what you're speaking on. So, Gary, where did the book fall in all of this? So where did you maybe decide that was something you were going to do? What was kind of the motivator behind that?
Yeah. So basically, I've always been someone who documents my journey. I remember when I was working in Australia, and there was sort of a seasoned sales pro that I sort of started learning from, and I would literally just be documenting what he was saying. And I almost had this really cool journal of sales, and that's always been the way I've been in my career. And I actually wrote an ebook like maybe 10 years ago, and bear in mind, like I ultimately didn't have the success maybe that I have now, but I still documented everything that I learned at the business seminar. So I just wanted to document my journey. And then I got into this new vehicle, and it was 10 years from the previous ebook, and I just thought, why not document what I've done? And my wife was great as well. She was like, you need to write this book, you need to finish it, and also the coach that I have as well. And I just really wanted to reverse engineer what I had done, and I just felt like I call them destiny helpers. So there's once again my wife sort of helped come up with that term, or she'd heard it before, and I really wanted to sort of give back to these destiny helpers or mentors of mine, and really just help people who, the who in terms of the book is always you, right? It's you 10 years ago. Like if I could just write a book for myself back then and give it to them, ultimately, I believe that they would achieve their success, or it would accelerate it a lot faster. So if it could help me from 10 years ago, I felt like it could help others as well. And it was a really fun process. To be honest, when it came to writing it, I really procrastinated, and I did have that push from my wife. But what I actually did was, instead of sitting down writing, I used something called voice to text on my iPhone. And I literally walked around my neighborhood and just started sort of gone back into the mental archive, should I say, and sort of documenting once again the journey. And at that point, I was able to get the 7 chapters, and like that all went great. And then I hired a editor who really brought the stories to life, really brought the pain that I went through, and ultimately the solutions to it. And it's always funny, right? The book is called Built by Lessons: How to Turn Your Triumphs or your challenges, should I say, into triumphs. And that actually was the hardest part, coming up with the title, and that took a long, long time. So I just thought that was interesting to share.
Yeah, uh, there's, I mean, everybody has probably a lot of lessons like that they could share, right? Like that, especially the hardships that we've encountered, things that have really challenged us. And what's even maybe even more relevant is that probably a lot of other people have gone through, if not exactly the same scenario, but similar. And it's pretty easy to feel alone in what you're experiencing. It's pretty easy to feel like, oh, there's no solution, or maybe you have come up with a solution, but don't think that it's a viable one. And so to have a book like that where someone has kind of put those things down as, hey, these are actual things that I went through. Somewhat, people are going to resonate with that and find, if not all 7, they're going to find a couple that, like, oh yeah, I've been there, I've been through that. Wish I had this, as a resource at that time. And so I say that to say, I mean, it's great that you did that, but almost, what I'm thinking as you're talking about is like, that's probably a good practice for a lot of people. Maybe it never becomes an actual published book, but just the writing down, the journaling, the things, even doing it through voice notes, all of that to kind of document things that you're going through. Did you feel like it was, therapeutic is the right word, but did you feel like as it was, you know, as you were going through that, writing these things down, or getting them out on paper, or recording or whatever, did you feel like that was something that just helped you, maybe wrap your mind about the challenges even better than, without?
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, it was probably therapy without the therapist, so to speak. And while you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, Matthew McConaughey, the actor, like he wrote a book called Green Light, I think it is.
Yep.
And for
Yep.
me, that was an amazing book. And he really documented everything he did. Like he had it written down, he journaled everything, which is amazing. Now, I didn't have it to that level, but of course, when you're walking around and you're leaving the voice notes, you're triggering your memory quite a bit, and you actually start to learn about yourself. And then you have a lot of gratitude as well for the people that sort of helped you along your way, and you recall like stories. And it's amazing, it really, really is. And I don't journal every day. I wish I did, but this was my form of journaling, I think. And ultimately it sort of helped me as well. It gives you, I guess, maybe closure on certain things, and maybe you start to realize like how you've got to where you've got to. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. And like I said, you don't have to have to publish it on Amazon or publish it completely. It's just a good little journal for yourself. Maybe if you ever have self-doubt, you look back at this and you realize that, hey, I've conquered something before and I can do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. You've mentioned a coach a couple of times, and I think, and we've I think had a lot of discussion about mentorship and coaches and things like that on this podcast over the episodes. And I've had business coach, but I think, you look back in life and maybe they weren't all labeled as coaches or mentors throughout life, but I think there are a lot of examples of that in life, whether formal or not. But you did mention that your coach a few times. What role do you feel like having a coach has played in your career, in your success? Kind of, if you would talk a little bit about that, because now it it's feels it's kind of, and I think this often happens. You've got a book. I have a feeling you probably mentor a lot of people, whether it's a formal arrangement or not. But yet, you yourself have a coach, and I think that I've found that even coaches have coaches, and so what do you? How has that impacted your life and your career?
Yeah, great question. And while you were saying that, I was just thinking back when I went to some seminars in Australia. I remember being at one on a Saturday and I saw a speaker on stage. And then I went to another seminar on a Sunday and I saw the speaker in the audience, watching another coach. And I thought, isn't that interesting, that this person is on stage, but yet he's still clearly sort of learning. So he's always learning, right? So for me, so just to let you know, I'm now actually studying to be a coach. So I'm doing a diploma in coaching. And what I realized once I got coaching from my current coach, there's a massive difference between coaching and mentoring. So the way my coach does it, he has every 2 weeks a coaching call, and then the following 2 weeks would be a mentoring call. And honestly, coaching is completely different to what I thought it was. It's someone listening to you because you have all the ideas and all of the answers. They're literally just bringing it out of you, shining a torch on you, and asking you questions that make you think because you already have the answers. So when I'm doing this diploma now, it's really active listening. And it's something that I have to get better at 100%. But it's just so valuable. And then the mentoring is really, even for me, I feel like when I've been mentoring, I've almost been doing it wrong, to be honest, because I shouldn't be giving advice, right? Even in this book, this just worked for me, and 100%. If you get something from it, fantastic. But we're all different individuals. But of course, as they say, success leaves clues. But like, I'd never now give advice to people. It's only guidance, per se. But for me, the coaching is, it could be business coaching, but ultimately it goes back to you understanding yourself a lot more. It's self exploration, as the coach that I work with sort of speaks about. And for me, now going into the coaching, doing the diploma, like that has only happened because I started doing coaching. And once again, it's, you're an antenna, you're receiving things all the time. Like that would never have been on the agenda if I didn't say yes and didn't sort of pay to play. So like all of these things sort of, I guess, go back to that, what I was doing years ago, investing in myself. And I'm sure all of your audience will agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's hugely powerful. I mean, it was I had a business coach. I mean, I could argue I would like to have one all the time, but had one for about 6 months after going through a really hard, I guess, business lesson, and it was a lot of, as you mentioned, active listening, giving me, I think, tools to help work through some of the things that, like you said, they're in there. It's just kind of getting them out and moving away from just feeling sort of beat up by having things go wrong, and moving more into, okay, we see how that feels now, what do we do about it, kind of thing. So I think it's just very powerful and very effective. So important for people to understand that. Well, Gary, we I always ask every guest. The name of the show is Know Your Why. I always ask every guest, "What is your why?" You sort of mentioned that a little bit earlier today, but I wanted to give you kind of a moment to expand on that, to kind of give a broader picture of what drives you. You've obviously had a lot of success, and I think at its surface in this conversation, it almost feels like it comes easy to you. Um, I'm sure that's maybe not true. I think you've definitely demonstrated you put in the work, but it does feel very natural at this point. Just kind of talking to you. So I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more about your why and sort of what's kind of driving you forward at this point too.
Yeah, great question. While you were saying that, I was just thinking my coach always says like life should almost be like a dance and not a fight, because I think back to when I was in my 20s and it's like push, push, push. And now I'm really probably in that surrender stage. And that's something that I learned through the ice baths, as an example, like, or going into cold water or a cold shower, that like you just have to surrender to it. And someone articulated it really well, that it is patience. And as you get older, you just have to learn to almost like accept things. And as my coach says, like, it's already done. When you go in and you try and achieve something, just have that mindset of it's already done. And for me, it's probably, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, right, it probably is giving back, because the more I think about it now as I'm getting older, I even had a call today with sort of an early in career team and the company that I'm with. And there's almost that fulfillment when you see the sort of the whites of people's eyes sort of, you know, think, and there's like a knowledge drop on them. And I get almost as much fulfillment from that, from making a sale as an example, so I think that my why is ultimately that the coaching stuff. And this is sort of very new to me. Like, I've only really started doing the diploma recently, but I almost feel like that giving back stuff. That's ultimately my why. Like, I want to, I guess, leave a legacy in a way, right? I think that's probably the ultimate thing, to give back to people. And yeah, just to help. Like, a lot of people helped me, and some of them didn't have to help me. Like, one of the things that I've done really well over the past couple of years has been able to connect with sort of, I guess, sort of high individuals, right? Because if you don't ask, you don't get. So like, there's, for instance, like a self-made millionaire who didn't have to answer my message that I sent him on Twitter, but he said that there's almost a loss of the sort of the apprentice and the mentor, in life. So, he met me, and I met him for like 2 hours, and I'll always remember someone on his team sort of said like, "Why are you meeting this guy? Like, you're not really going to get anything from him." And he just said like, I want to help people, So there are people out there like that. And while I'm nearly 40, right? I'm not quite there yet, but I think that's ultimately where I want to go, because I'm speaking to a lot of people in their 60s, and they say like the time accelerates like as you get older, and I'm starting to see that now. And I think back to, there's a great scene in The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, the actor, and he sees a Ferrari and he sort of says like two questions, like, what do you do, and like, how can I do it, type thing. And I think ultimately, that curiosity, type stuff, like, if someone's that curious and they want to learn, I ultimately want to help them. And like, that's ultimately, I guess, where I want to go with this.
No, no, that's amazing. That's amazing. The it is. I just turned 50. I can tell you for sure it does speed up. The time goes by faster and faster. So it's definitely, I mean, something to consider. But yeah, I love what you said about kind of being in a mode of more of surrender, um, or an acceptance of what's happening with whether that's through ice bath or just challenges in life. So that's pretty great. I mean, visual there. Gary, when people hear this and they want to connect, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so the best way, if you go to LinkedIn, it's at Gary Daly Sales. I'm also on Twitter. But if you go to Amazon.com or .co.uk or whatever one your audience is using, if you type in "Built by Lessons," and my name, Gary Daly, then you'll see my book there. And I think, if you do come across that, definitely get it. I've put a lot of effort into it, and I genuinely think it can help people, whatever age. I've had sort of younger audiences read it. I've had a mentor of mine read it who just sort of sold one of his companies, and he said there was elements in it that helped him. So I'd be really appreciative if people went there. Just find me on LinkedIn and connect with me. I'm happy to always have a chat, and discuss life in general, I suppose.
Awesome. We'll get all of that in show notes so people can find you. Gary, thanks so much for being on the show today. Thanks for sharing all of this. I think the value, just for me, I feel like just sort of talking to you, you have a very, like I said, natural sort of positive vibe, and I think that to me that inspires wanting to know more, wanting to read the book, wanting to kind of understand what allows you to give off such a positive aura. And I think so I really enjoyed the conversation, and I thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. No, really appreciate it. It was really nice.
Folks, make sure you connect with Gary, get his book, and please rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?